Hey, boys and girls! Yes, back again.
I know.
Mai Tai Happy Hour. It is a great week for us, Hambone.
I know.
Glad to have you back in
I'm so happy to be back.
my dungeon 2 weeks in a row.
2 weeks in a row, down the bungalow.
I'm not calling you up at some random time right beforehand going, Hambone, I gotta come to your basement. I can't do it. Too much 5G.
I know.
Because that's basically been my MO lately.
It really has.
Yeah, sorry about that. You know, it's the year of 5G for me. It's my lost year.
I know. I try not to use the number 5 around you, so I don't trigger you.
Yeah, it'll trigger you. Even though we're very excited, obviously, for 5G.
5G rocks.
Yeah, New York this week. Woo! Woo! But we are in the studio. We are here. We were not going to banter too much over the music because I've been yelled at way too much about that. Hambone, what do we have on the show today?
So tonight we have an action-packed show. We are going to talk about the new Blink-182 album, 9, now in stores. George has some early thoughts on the Deuce back on HBO. George is also doing something completely Freaky Friday. He's the one binging this week, a show called Unbelievable. And we're going to talk a little bit about wrestling tonight, why Raw is must-see TV again.
Yo, I mean, it's awesome again. I'm so excited for Raw. I actually watch Raw. I watch wrestling in real time now. It's so weird.
It's bananas, me too.
Yeah, but first of all, cocktail time. We need a cocktail. What should we drink?
So tonight, I figured since we're going to be talking about the Deuce, which takes place in the 70s and 80s, I would go with a quintessential 70s cocktail. Mm-hmm. We're going to teach you how to make a Harvey Wallbanger.
Ooh.
Now, Harvey Wallbanger is similar to the screwdriver in that there is 1.25 ounces of vodka. There is 3 ounces of orange juice in there as well. However, we're going to add a little Galliano, so it's a half ounce of Galliano.
What is a Galliano?
So for those listening at home, Galliano is an Italian cordial, and it's got hints of vanilla, anise, which is like a licorice flavor, citrus, and it's a little bit woodsy in the aftertaste.
Woodsy. All right.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what that means.
Hickory? I don't know.
Hickory. I don't want to say dirty, but like, you know.
Smoky?
Smoky.
Yeah, that works.
So it's a sweet and smoky cocktail. So 1.25 ounces of vodka, 3 ounces of orange juice. You're just going to put it right in the glass with the ice ready. You're going to take a half ounce of Galliano, and I recommend using a teaspoon to gently float it over the top of the drink and the ice. Garnish it with an orange and a cherry, and that's how you make a Harvey Wallbanger. Sounds a lot more fun than it actually is.
It sounds great. I like complicated cocktails as long as they're worth the trouble.
Yeah.
Getting into Are your eyes okay?
I don't know. Something just happened.
Did you touch a cat?
I don't think I did, but we're just play through, man.
It is cat-free down here.
Play
it's
through.
a cat-free layer. What it isn't is McGuire-free. We have another McGuire on the phone.
We totally do.
We have Ryan McGuire.
Is my cousin.
Not to be confused with Brian McGuire.
It's one letter off, but two completely different people.
Completely fucked that up before because I did not realize that they were two separate people. I really thought Brian McGuire was following me heavily on Twitter and was a super fan of the show. It's actually Ryan McGuire. Ryan, welcome to the show. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, thanks for having me. How are you two?
No problem. Great. We are awesome. So our first segment, we're reviewing the new Blink-182 album. We found out that we're old and fat and can't properly review albums that are hip today, even though the band has been around since our youth. We figured we'd bring a true millennial on board to talk a little bit about your thoughts of Blink-182. Ryan, you have heard the new album, 9?
I have. I listened to it twice over the weekend. Yeah.
Ooh. I mean, I think it just launched last week.
It did.
Is that what they do now? They launched? Not release dates.
I think like launching is kind of what they do now because it's kind of multimedia. Videos come out, things happen on the Twitter, which my actual brother actually tweets the right way. He doesn't.
Yeah. I'm so shocked at that. Brian and Ryan.
Yeah.
I mean, Greeks just name everybody George, so you can't screw that up.
Yeah.
Just George.
Yeah, the McGuires all use the same name, so.
So Blink-182, weird situation. You know, obviously, this is their second album with Matt Skiba on board. Tom DeLonge left to go find UFOs. Right.
He's working on it too.
Yeah, he's clearly. We found out this week that the Navy confirmed that the objects in his videos were UFOs.
Oh, he's got to feel so validated right now.
So weird. Though they didn't say obviously UFOs mean unidentified flying object. It just doesn't mean we didn't know what the hell they were. It could be very large paper airplanes.
Yeah.
I have no idea. But, you know, I listened to the album too. I assume you did as well, Hambone. I hope you would.
I did.
And I have thoughts. But Ryan, again, as our target audience millennial, what do you think of the new album?
Well, thank you for making me the resident millennial caller. I don't know. I definitely have thoughts. I feel like for the longest time, the older Blink, that's what I grew up with listening to. I remember first hearing it on Now 4. They had All the Small Things. That was my first exposure. And then it's all my buddies all have the albums. I know I'm dating myself there.
Ryan, hold on 1 second. That is the most millennial shit I've ever heard on this show.
I know.
I remember getting Now 4. I remember selling Now 1.
Yeah.
Now that's what I call music.
Yeah. For those listening at home, now that's what I call music.
Still around. You don't have to say it. They're actually still around.
Is
They're
it still
Oh,
around?
yeah. They're like on 103 now.
Oh, jeez.
Look it up. It's on iTunes. You can't find the old ones, which sucks.
Wow.
I've looked recently. So you were a fan of you grew up, you were probably weaned on the original Blink-182 when you were like a child, probably 8, 9, 10. Am I aging you correctly?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm 25, so.
We have talked about Blink-182 recently. We even tried to put them in the punk rock canon and failed.
Miserably.
We've talked about them with Lil Wayne. There's been a lot of Blink-182 talk on here.
Yeah.
But them as musicians, go ahead, Ryan.
No, I was gonna say, I've been listening, and I feel you. It's just they're in the news too much lately. It's like not ideal, to be honest.
I'm indifferent. I mean, I think they're actually getting some. I mean, who thinks about the Offspring anymore? So them being in the news made
you mostly.
Yeah, me. That's about it. But I listened to the new album. I have feelings. But Ryan, what are your thoughts? When you listen to it, knowing that you're a fan of the older stuff, what do you think of the new album?
So I actually saw something yesterday because Blink-182 played the halftime show for Monday Night Football, and I saw a comment online that's like, Tom DeLonge is probably really happy he's hunting for aliens right now. Playing here. Yeah.
That's tough.
And honestly, yeah, it's tough, but I think that's kind of it. I don't know what they're trying to do. I actually think California, their first album with Steve-O, was very solid. I mean, I'm not nominated for a Grammy, but like front end, it's a decent listen. And I listened to 9, and I just couldn't figure out what they were trying to do, what they were trying to say. I read a couple interviews with Mark Hoppus saying they were inspired by the wildfires in California and school shootings, and that's cool and all, but you're hard-pressed selling me on a song about that and also having a song on your album called On Some Emo Shit. So to me, it's just scattered all over the place.
Yeah, that's a hat on a hat.
In a bad way.
So Hambone, as our resident emo nerd, what are your thoughts?
You know, Cousin Ryan, it's funny because you've been pegged as the target millennial. At least you're not the resident emo nerd. I wear the badge proudly. That said,
You used to wear makeup. You win.
I did. I used to wear girls' jeans. It was a whole thing. It was the early 2000s, man. Yeah. Decisions were made. Not all of them good. So here's the actual thing. I thought I was going to get a different kind of Blink-182 when Matt Skiba joined the band. Like, I loved Matt Skiba. I love Alkaline Trio. And I'm like, all right, this is great.
Yeah.
I really love old Blink-182. I really love Matt Skiba. Peanut butter, meat chocolate. Everyone's happy. And, you know, the last record was a really solid outing. And I'm like, okay, cool. You know, they're getting their feet wet. New guy in the band. This is going to be great. And then I heard 9. And I was like, what in the actual fuck am I listening to? Now, when we grew up, and Blink-182 target audience wants to hear them sing songs about poo-poo and pee-pee, not like...
You see, I gotta disagree with
whatever the fuck 9 is.
No. So first of all, Hambone, I mean, you've skipped like 4 albums. They've stopped talking about pee-pee and poo-poo years ago.
You know what makes a crowd pop at every single show? When they talk about touching their dicks.
Yeah, I agree, but like I think there is a point in time, and you have to agree as a musician, where you have to grow up and change and adapt. That's why we can't listen to Screeching Weasel now and the Queers with a serious face.
Yeah, I get it per se, but we're talking about Blink-182. We're not talking about U2. U2, which over time still arguably one of, if not the greatest rock and roll bands of all time. I don't agree with that last part. Not a big U2 fan. I'm just saying, when you sell that many records and you're able to consistently reinvent yourself and then go back to basics and have that considered reinventing yourself, like, you got some staying power. Blink-182 is a very one-dimensional band. They always have been, and they always will be. Sure. Did Adam's song get all the jocks that I know to actually experience feelings for the first time? You bet your sweet ass they did. However, that's about as deep as it goes with Blink-182.
So I disagree with you. I think they've now had more albums that are serious than they had pee-pee poo-poo albums. Were those hit albums? Not really. But they have done it. I loved California. I thought it was a great album.
Very good record.
I thought this...
Agreed, yeah, very good.
I feel this album does carry through that. I mean, they have the same producers, John Feldman from Goldfinger, producing this record.
Right.
I also feel now, I am not an Alkaline Trio fan. I find Alkaline Trio to be horribly overproduced, especially their stuff past their first two albums.
You call that overproduced?
Horribly overproduced.
You heard 9?
And I find that they're just the style of music, the overproduction, the over instrumentalized too much. You know what I mean? Instrumentation. I felt this is an Alkaline Trio album. I
wholeheartedly disagree. Like, there is a vibe and a feeling in an Alkaline Trio album from front to back. This sounds like, hey, let's try to make a record that sounds like everything else that's on the radio and a hit now. Like, I get it. You want to try to grow your audience. You want to try to get people back in, but you forgot the thing that actually got them to the dance in the first place, and you're not doing anything like that anymore. He actually says, I'm looking at the Apple Music segment on it. Like, when you go to get the album, the first thing it says here is, I think on California, we really had an idea of what we wanted to record, what we wanted that record to sound like. And it was going back to the foundation of what Blink-182 is all about. And this is what Mark Hoppus told Apple Music Zane Lowe. 9 is everything that Blink-182 should be in 2019. I wholeheartedly disagree.
Anyway, okay, so let's talk. Let's give the millennial a chance to speak. Ryan, what are your thoughts on this? Do you want pee-pee and poo-poo jokes?
I mean, if you're a one-trick pony, but the trick is working, why are you going to change? I guess that's kind of it. But I definitely agree with what Hambone's saying. Like, they did things, they did it well. California, great. The older stuff, great. But to me, it almost sounds like they took bits and pieces of, like, an Angels and Airwaves, and then they're trying to make it a little social justice-y and then a little electronic. But if I want more of the pop punk, I'll find a more pop punk band. But that's never what Blink was. They had something else going on.
It sounds more like Angel and Airwaves fucked plus 44, and this is the album 9.
Actually.
Yeah, except Tom DeLonge's nowhere to be seen.
But clearly his specter is looming.
I guess. I think it's more John Feldman than anything else. I also think it's them trying to be a little more sharp. I love, look, the parts of the whole I love. I think Travis Barker is amazing on this album. I love that style of drumming though.
Right.
That almost the math punk stuff of the late 90s, early 2000s. You know, it's got that very, very I can't speak today. No, not these nuts. God damn it! You're so like pee-pee poo-poo.
But that's what the people want.
Deconstructed drum sound that he rebuilds. I love Matt Skiba. Obviously, I like his voice. I think he's a better singer than Tom DeLonge. But I didn't. So where I'm getting is I don't hate the album. I still think I need a little more time to grow into it. I do find it very jarring that one generation something punk rock song that appears out of nowhere after 3 or 4 emo songs. I found that a little jarring.
Yeah, that's what the rest of the record should sound like.
Nah.
Yeah, they did that on California too. It's almost like an interlude because I think if you look at the album art, they try to have it as like an A side and a B side, and that one song that's like 45 seconds fast, and you're like, oh, this is the stuff I know and I like. It's like an interlude, and then they go back to the new stuff. It's very strange.
Yeah, the thing that you're great at should never be the interlude.
So I am a huge fan of AFI.
Yes,
and I watched them do this.
Right.
I don't know, Ryan, if you're a fan of AFI, but they came out of the Northern California hardcore, East Bay hardcore scene. They released 2 or 3 skate punk albums and proceeded to become like the punk rock version of Bauhaus. Have continued to mature and translate and form like dance punk. There's a whole lot of elements and layers to AFI, but I feel like they truly were able to adapt and mature. Members of the band even had to leave, and I get that. And there are people who don't love the new AFI stuff. I don't understand how people could really like the original AFI stuff anymore at age 40, but I get where a band needs to mature to get ahead and be able to continue to make the music they love and not get burned out.
I agree with that to a point. I definitely, listen, I've been a musician my whole life, all the years that counted. And there is a certain degree of you want to evolve, you want to do something different, you want to change, but there's a point where you change so much, you can't call it what it was when it started. Like AFI, I would argue that going from Answer That and To Stay Fashionable to whatever the last release was called, I mean, they are, even though they're the same guys, they're 2 completely different bands. And you actually, a great example of that is The Damned, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's really 2, if not 3 versions of The Damned. There's The Damned, Machine Gun Etiquette, Strawberries The Damned. And then you have the Eloise Damned and, Alone Again or Damned. And then you have the really gothy Damned, but they always kind of kept one foot on the base, even when they were leading off at trying to steal another one. And my take on this is, yeah, you got to grow, but you can't really fully forget where you came from. And that's what I feel like Blink-182 did on this album. They kind of, except for that 45-second interview, kind of were like making an album that sounds like a 2019 album instead of making an album that sounds like a Blink-182 album.
I mean, it's 2019.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Right. But they should, you should be able to still keep course with who you are and what you are as a band, even though they got a different guitar player and a different singer now. I thought he's a little more in line with what the band was than Tom DeLonge because, Tom's got to go chase aliens.
The only place I see where there could be confusion is the fact that they're in the middle of a big throwback tour.
Yes.
That's where I see a little confused. I find this album and the music on it is a little strange and jarring considering that they're doing Enema of the State front to back.
Yeah. It's completely weird.
They also started a tour and they did a throwback anniversary tour for that great album with Lil Wayne.
Well, that's a whole different conversation that we've had already, which I think was a smart move to try. I don't think they expected their counterpart in the hip hop community to be that lame.
Well, here's the thing. Now hearing this album, that tour makes so much more sense.
Yeah, I heard. I think it was you. No, it wasn't you, Ryan. It was Steve who wrote to me and said
You're great, Steve.
Lil Wayne showed up like 45 minutes late. I mean, I'm all for trying to do a different type of tour with different type of music. Again, we've talked about this with Rage Against the Machine and Cypress Hill, or Hellman and Cypress Hill, and Rage Against the Machine, the Wu-Tang Clan. Like, there is a place for that. I think you just need to have a reliable counterpart, which in this case they did. It was kind of like when Metallica had Guns N' Roses, and Guns N' Roses dropped the ball on everything. Can't say they sucked. It's just, it was what it was. I have one last thought to leave aside. Ryan, maybe you can answer this. Why the hell is this album called 9 when it's their 8th album?
I don't know. I mean, it doesn't really make a ton of sense. It's not the 9th album total, is it? There's more than that,
No, California was their 7th album. No, there's actually less.
7th, 8th.
Yeah, California was their 7th album.
Got it. I know they had one, mixtape or short track. Maybe that's counting as number 8 if you count it as Legend album. So it would be 9. That's my only guess. They had one, I think it was called Dogs Eating Dogs or something like that.
I'm struggling. If anybody knows why it's called 9, we'd be glad to hear from you. Ryan, any final thoughts?
No, I think that's it. I told Johnny a few weeks ago they are no longer my number one go-to favorite. It's been around since day one, so that place is now for the that they're knocked down. Arctic Monkeys is number 1. They've been around for me for a long time. They'll stay number 1.
Arctic Monkeys.
Wow, Ryan.
Yeah.
I can't believe that you pulled Arctic Monkeys out.
Yeah, that's like, we might as well pull out Franz Ferdinand or something there.
I got one more question for you, Ryan. Is it weird calling me Hambone?
I feel like I have to do it for the show. I mean, I'll put it on your
I only call him Hambone on the show. I can't. It's weird. Like, I can't call a grown ass man Hambone. But it is what it is.
Hey man, a gimmick's a gimmick.
I find it more weird that he calls you Cousin Ryan and you're a grown ass man.
I only do it for the show.
I have one of those too. Like my cousin Michael, he keeps calling me Cousin George. I'm like, please don't call me Cousin George. It makes me feel so old. Now, at least he's like 17, so it's a little bit, there, here and there. But anyway, Ryan, we really appreciate having you on the phone today, on the show today. Thank you very much. Next time we need a millennial voice, we'll be absolutely calling you.
Yeah, I can be your resident millennial. Call me whenever.
Take care.
Thanks, man.
So, the excellent segment. Thank you for getting us a millennial. It was tough. I know you were looking everywhere for one.
Yeah, they're hard to find.
Yeah.
You can't just throw a rock and hit one in the head. Also, that would be assault.
That would be very strange. You were dying to the point where you tried to make a segment, even though it's 2 weeks in a row, to talk about Dark Crystal again this week. Is this just to continue your fetish for Muppet feet?
It is not to finish. I love Muppet feet. Hashtag Muppet feet. I don't have a fetish for Muppet feet. They just make me happy in my heart. No, I want to walk something back. I know I said last week that I wasn't really sold on it. Like, I watched Carnival Row and I kind of just gravitated more towards that, and that Dark Crystal was a little too heady for me at the time. And I really was unsure of looking at these Muppets when they had the Team America look going on. However, I got through the first episode and I couldn't stop. I am completely crazy about this series. This is fantasy as fantasy should be done. I mean, granted, I'm still a little iffy on some of the Muppet faces, and some of the action sequences are filmed a little weird. But nonetheless, man, I'm enthralled with this storyline. Like, this is the kind of show where I almost wish it came out week after week, because I feel like it's like must-watch television.
So Netflix is starting to talk. I think they are going to start doing week to week with some shows. Do you know that?
I think that's a great idea.
Ah, you're walking back your binging too.
I'm not so much walking back my binging. I am looking at it as a little bit of a different concept now. I was actually talking to our buddy George about it today, and like, I think the best way to do things would be drop 3 episodes, and then you leave them wanting more, and then you come back every week. I think that
the Hulu way of doing things.
The Hulu way of doing it, I think, is the right way to do it, because at that point, it gives you a little more time to breathe. It's like, oh, you just watched 3 episodes of TV. Now go to bed, or go read a book, or go hang out with your friend, do something. But now you have more things to talk about, and having a week-over-week show, it gives you a little more of an opportunity to have things to talk about with other people, which I think that binging is different for me. Like, I was, I'm depressed, I'm single, and I have amazing amounts of time to do stuff in, so I could binge watch whatever I want to binge watch.
Just want to make note, that was actually an advertisement for Hambone. He is single and depressed. That's really going to help out here, buddy.
It was not necessarily an advertisement. It just is what it is. Like, a lot of my friends are married. A lot of my friends have kids. A lot of my friends have other things to do. But me, it's like, oh, I got time. I'm binge watching stuff because I like it, and binge watching stuff for the show. However, I do now see the value in having kind of to be able to spread out the TV shows a little more. And I think The Dark Crystal is one of them. I mean, thankfully, because I am binging it currently, it was all available to me when I wanted it. However, I get it, man. And I know that binging also creates a culture of spoilers, which makes it harder for people who don't have the time that I have to go and watch something. You feel you need to watch it. It kind of takes the pressure off of people. So I'm kind of hoping that they move in that direction, but definitely give me 3 up front, bro, because I still need a little bit,
I just got to make it very clear that there's an asterisk on this, that I consider Hambone my happiest friend.
I am happy.
My happiest friend.
During certain hours of the day.
He's single and happy.
Yes.
Happy and available. Find him on Tinder.
I think
Timber's
Timber's
a dude one, isn't it?
If not, it should be.
He might be on there too.
It might be a complete missed opportunity.
Yeah, it's like Hellenic Hotties, which I will get off the ground one day.
At some point.
Oh my God! So speaking of hotties and Timbers and Tinders, except back in the 80s, the Deuce came back.
Yes.
The Deuce, I think you would like. It's not feel bad. I want to make it clear that the Deuce is not feel bad. I almost feel like, do you think Josh would answer the phone?
He might.
If we call him in. So the Deuce is created by the gentleman who created The Wire, who I always screw up and confused with the guy who created Sopranos. It's like one of those Chase guys.
Yeah, the guy who created The Wire has been crushing it on social media lately, because people keep coming at him.
Oh, yeah, the president stuff.
People keep coming at him. Well, bro, didn't you ever see The Wire? And he's like, come on, guys.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. Like,
it's me.
Why would you not
I did that.
know? Well, he's created, for those who, it's a horrible, HBO has done a terrible job promoting this show, but he's gone and created another show where he's talking about the history of 42nd Street and the rise and fall of prostitution
in New York City,
and then the rise and fall of kind of like live sex houses, and then the porn industry,
brothels.
Let's call him Josh. If Josh is available, he might actually answer his phone. Especially since we have all this set up, because I think he's one of those. He's the one who reminds me of the Deuce is always on.
Yeah,
and I feel like if anyone can really bring an air of I don't know, a different point of view on it, it would be our history major and also the most attractive man ever on our show.
He's the best looking friend we have
every time.
Hey, George.
Joshua, have you watched The Deuce yet?
Oh shit! I'm actually behind. I saw I saw episode 1, but not the others.
That's fine, because we're doing an early preview of the show. I want to know what your thoughts are so far this season.
Well, I only saw episode 1, but I thought it was pretty great. I thought they did a great fast forward to the 80s. They captured the feeling of 80s Times Square absolutely perfectly. And like the whole idea that video cassettes and anyone can shoot their own porn now, and why the hell would you go to a movie? I think it's awesome.
It's so hilarious with the correlation between that and what's going on now, where the porn industry is basically collapsing because of the internet.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same exact thing. The new technology is getting rid of the old.
Exactly. Why do you love the Deuce so much, Josh?
Growing up, I would go to New York with my parents and stuff like that, and I remember seedy Times Square.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I just remember Times Square in New York City having this element of, it was fun, it was exciting, it was a place to go, but it wasn't someplace it wasn't a place that good guys went. It had this seediness, this danger to it. And that old New York, I'm always drawn to it. And I think that's one of the reasons. This is celebrating that old New York that, at least in this season, I kind of remember the tail end of. I mean, I still remember the end of the strip clubs and the porn stores in Times Square.
Yep. But definitely that was still very much around in the mid-90s.
Well, 80s Times Square was interesting because if you had told me that any of those corners Batman's parents had been murdered on, I would have believed you.
Yep.
Because that's what 80s Times Square was like.
Especially that no man's land between Times Square and Port Authority and Penn Station.
Yeah, that's where Batman's parents definitely got murdered.
That's kind of where all this shit moved to in the late 90s to, like, I don't know, early aughts. Is that what you call it?
Yeah.
Josh.
Gotta get a better name for that.
But I honestly feel that the Deuce is a true character on the show, much like how Baltimore was a character in The Wire.
100%.
Do you agree with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not the show's not called anything except for the Deuce. It is about that area of New York City and how that area changed over time and didn't really change in many ways over the time. And I think you describe it great by making that connection to The Wire. The Wire is not about the characters; it's about that city. The Deuce is about the Deuce.
Yeah, I'll leave you there, Josh, because your connection is kind of horrible. But anytime you want to be on the show, let us know. We need more attracted people on the show.
He's the most handsome friend.
You take care, dude.
I cannot disagree. Thank you very much.
Yeah, David Simon, who made The Wire, he is very good at making the actual place where you are a member of the cast.
I also, that not to take away from the cast.
Yeah.
The acting on the show. I really think you should watch it, Hambone.
You know what? The only reason I didn't watch it was because it came out when I had a glut of other things that I needed to watch.
I completely agree with that. I mean, I'm watching,
but I'll binge it.
Mr. Mercedes now. I think if you were to go back and start with season 1, you would truly enjoy it. I'm saying that to everybody else too. This isn't I know I am the feel bad movie person.
You're the guy.
And look, the topic isn't exactly fun and happy, but there's no like real violence.
It's like Boogie Nights, I heard.
It's very similar, but a little less hokey.
Yeah.
It's definitely gritty because Boogie Nights is. I was talking to Allison about it last night. I actually feel between season 2 and 3, you could have watched Boogie Nights.
Oh.
So Boogie Nights fits in, but it's West Coast.
Yeah.
Whereas this movie is very East Coast.
Yeah.
And a lot of the prostitution, yes, there is some, not so nice things that happen, but it is not a feel bad show unless you really hate porn.
Who doesn't?
And the prostitution stuff, obviously,
I love it.
The fall of the pimps.
Yeah.
All that was in the first season. Second season was very much about the rise of the porn industry. I do feel this one's going to be kind of the not as necessarily the fall of the porn industry, but the evening out. VHS.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing in this. Maggie Gyllenhaal, this is her role.
Isn't it crazy when you think about the adult entertainment industry and like the grand equalizer has come twice for them, pun intended, in the lifetime of porn, like the VHS, which, in a way crippled the industry. And then they kind of had to rebuild from that because it's like, well, we don't need to have like actual people who can shoot film. We can just do this on the VHS that, grandma got us for Christmas. And then the internet was the next big, like, sweep the leg, Johnny. So it's pretty interesting. I'm definitely going to check out this show.
I think you really will. Like, the acting is tremendous. It's an ensemble cast, largely taken from The Wire, but everybody in there does a really good job. Look, I'm not the biggest James Franco fan. I feel he's one of those people that plays James Franco. And let me tell you, getting Allison to watch this show when she found out James Franco plays twins. So there's twice as much James Franco in this show.
That's a lot of Franco.
I mean, he is very much James Franco. It is what it is. He plays like a good brother and a good twin and a bad twin. It can get a little eyeball rolling, but there's so much other...
Wait. Does the bad twin have a mustache?
Yes. Except in this season where they both, because it's the 80s, and everybody has a mustache in this season.
But how could you tell who the bad twin is?
One has fluffy hair and one has more of a pompadour.
Is the pompadour one the good guy?
The Pompadour wants the bad guy.
Shit.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch.
And look, it's the 80s. AIDS is obviously weighing heavy on this season.
Right.
And the gay community in New York and how they were affected by this. There's a lot of, cocaine. There's a lot of cocaine this season, and it's just seeing how things have changed. And you're seeing correlation to how the pimps and prostitutes fell down a little bit during the 70s. Really, really good show. Again, acting is amazing. The scenery, the artistic merit. This is gonna be the last season,
Right.
So at least you have an end now. And if people like the end,
I think that's great, though.
yeah, you can actually just really binge in, not feel like how we feel with Santa Clarita Diet. We're like, we're never gonna get a real
Sons of
ending.
Bitches. I mean, here's the thing. As much as I love that I got 15 seasons of Supernatural, I think like 3 to 5 seasons is a good amount for any show. I think that once you get past that 3 to 5 season mark, you've told all the good stories that you're going to tell. Like I'm hard pressed to find in this day and age the desire to be like, all right, season number 19, let's do this.
I agree 100%. I actually get excited now when I know there's an end game for a show rather than them dragging it on forever like Walking Dead.
Yes. Glow's got a 4th and final season, and I'm here for it, man.
All for it. I also think, and I was saying before, this is about the rise and fall of the porn industry. This is actually the rise and fall of the Deuce.
Right.
So I have a feeling there's a lot of introductions here of police officers who are finding, if you haven't listened to the episode of Reply All, it was a couple months back, but they talked about how statisticians and math truly ended crime in New York because they found people who can figure out how to play the ComStat game and, what numbers raise. Obviously, it led a lot to racial profiling and things, but they did, obviously Giuliani era was able to clean up New York for better or for worse using, tactics that may not have been good or bad, but it is what it is. They do start showing that. So I think this show does end with Disney and The Lion King moving into the corner of 42nd.
Yeah. Well,
and really good show. Really recommend it. It's on episode 3 right now, and this early preview will have a full wrap up in a couple weeks when the show is over. So definitely check that out. And yes, I binged hard. Unbelievable. New Netflix show.
You know what's unbelievable?
What?
You binged a show.
I binge a show every now and then. Look, I always check out, just so you know, I always said that it's very hard to find out what's on Netflix.
Yes.
Netflix has now started sending out emails. There's a weekly newsletter that
Thanks
goes
for watching
out.
the show, Netflix.
Yes.
Our idea.
There is a weekly newsletter that goes out just telling you what's on. And I think it's tailored to what you like, but they talked about the show called Unbelievable. Coming off of having watched Mindhunter.
Right.
I was all up for another show about serial killers, in this case, serial rapists. I was like, all right, this might be a good way to slide out of Mindhunter, but not go completely into Glow. And I watched, so Unbelievable is the story of a serial rapist. It's not about him, but it's trying to find him. The hunt for a serial rapist. Taking over the course of 3 years. There's 2 time periods, 2008 and 2011, based on a true story. I haven't dug yet to find out how real of a true story this is, but I assume this is fairly true. And it opens up first episode entirely about a young girl. I think she's 18, just out of the foster care system, living in kind of I don't want to call it a halfway house, but that might be the proper terminology. But it's a place where other foster kids live together when they get they come of age.
Boarding house.
And she is sexually assaulted by a man who, creeps into the night. And because she is, very quiet and very B-type, and because the cops suck, the detectives were able to twist the story around to get her to admit she lied about it.
Fuckers.
And then it goes between them.
I already hate the show.
It goes between them and we can't hate the show. Because the show then goes between 2008 and 2011, where 2 detectives, stumble upon very similar instances of sexual assault in different districts by happenstance, combine their notes and find out that there is a serial rapist out there who knows the game, knows the system, has watched a lot of CSI, and knows how to maneuver the system. Same MO, that he rapes them with condoms, makes them shower for 20 minutes. There is no evidence anywhere, clean as can be. They think it might be a cop. There's a lot of interesting things that go into this. But what happens is they also keep talking about the life of that girl in 2008 and how her life was ruined because she claimed to have lied about this. And you watch her story intertwined with these 2 female detectives in a very male-driven society,
right,
trying to hunt down this rapist, and just watching them work together and piece together very much a whodunit, but done right. It's mostly made up of a lead female cast. Definitely a different play on this type of story. It is feel bad. There is a good ending, at least.
Gotcha.
A positive ending. I don't want to spoil anything, but very well done. 8 episodes, 45 minutes each.
Oh, that's the right amount of TV.
Well worth watching if you're at all into these type of CSIs, Law and Order types. Some of it actually feels low budget enough that it could be on network television. Lots of music in the background while they're discovering things.
So it's procedural.
Very procedural. Very procedural, but because they're cutting between time periods, 2008 and 2011, it is a little bit, it's definitely a different take on the procedural.
So it's Netflix SUV.
Yeah, 8-episode SUV. So, and it is great. It is wonderful seeing them put it together. It's nice seeing, again, strong female leads. A lot of people, this was created by the producer director of Justified. You see a lot of crossover with characters.
Fantastic.
Yes.
That is a fantastic show.
The main girl is Caitlin, the young girl is Caitlin, or is that her name on the show? I don't remember if that's the cast name. Or she plays the very young girl who's also kind of a criminal in Justified.
The one of Ma's?
Yeah.
One of Ma's kids?
Yes. The main young girl in it.
Oh, she was great.
She is the main lead young actress, and as
Caitlin Dever.
That's her real name, right? I didn't know if that was. I couldn't remember if that was her real name or the name of the character on the show. But
you got Toni Collette in there. This is a great cast.
Exactly. So you have the Toni Collette coming off of one of our favorite movies, our favorite horror movie last year, Hereditary, playing a completely different, instead of a broken, falling apart woman. In this one, she's playing a very badass, strong detective. I've never heard of Merritt Weaver before, but she's also very good as the more country bumpkin-esque detective, but someone who wants to do better and do right. Just great cast, great show. Again, if you want feel bad, but not that feel bad, and if you love CSI and those type of cop shows, this is the one for you. Very well done. It's called Unbelievable. It's on Netflix right now.
There you go.
So I felt like we needed to touch on wrestling a little bit because wrestling is changing right now.
In a dramatic fashion.
We're not going to talk about AEW. We're going to save AEW for next week or either next week or the week after.
It's very exciting.
When the Wednesday night wars begin.
Yeah.
But there's a lot going on from Impact buying Anthem, the parent, the TV station that has, and New Japan, to the rise and fall hard of Ring of Honor now, but just sticking to what we love, which is WWE.
Right.
In recent times, it was announced that Vince is passing down some of the creative reins to Paul Heyman, who created ECW who created ECW. He's getting the reins on Raw. Eric Bischoff, who ran WCW into the ground, is getting the reins of SmackDown. The Bischoff fingerprints haven't really been felt yet. I believe he's still only kind of taking part of that. But Paul Heyman is fully into Raw.
Oh, and it shows.
What a difference a couple of weeks makes.
It's really interesting because Raw, for me, for a long time, so I'm a Hulu subscriber, and on Hulu, they give you a 90-minute version of Raw. Now, Raw, for those watching at home, may not have watched Raw in the past. Raw's 3 hours. Now, with commercials, that's about 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's a little too long at times. And when you watch it the next day on Hulu, it is a tight 90 minutes. So you get all killer, no filler. That being said, for a long time now, it's been a lot of filler.
Mm-hmm.
Not
just filler, but I wouldn't even say filler. It's more like they think the fans are stupid, and the writing has been to the lowest common denominator.
Absolutely.
And I feel the storylines have not been strong. I feel unless you're writing to Roman Reigns or the top characters, there is no other storyline going on. What was great about the Attitude Era, there wasn't much great about the Attitude Era, but what was great about the Attitude Era is that every single person, no matter how big or small, had a storyline.
Absolutely.
They solved that with the 24/7 title.
Yes.
And I find that they've done it a little more by just, you have people on the payroll, make them do something.
Yeah.
I mean, the worst thing on the show right now is who is the love child cuckold angle between Mike Bennett and Maria and everyone else that's involved in that. That said, it gives a lot of people something to do.
Yeah.
and it's kind of entertaining, if not ridiculous.
Cucking storyline in 2019 is pretty on brand for the dumpster fire that is 2019.
Yeah, and I again, that's the worst thing about the show.
Yes, which is only one segment.
Which is one segment, and that's not even that bad. Their baby reveal, gender reveal episode, that could have been horrible, but by involving the Street Profits, it was great. The Street Profits,
amazing.
Don't wrestle. They have them as the Greek choir. As Allison says, it's kind of like the two old guys in the Muppet Show.
They really are. The funny thing is that they're fantastic wrestlers.
So, yeah, but you know what? It is what it is. They want people to hype the show up, and they do it right. I am loving that, again, a lot of people. Cedric Alexander, who was just forgotten.
Yes.
Major role. Ricochet, pushed to the top. You even see, we saw EC3 on TV this week.
Finally.
I mean, buried alive, but on
Up to his
TV.
neck.
Viking Raiders. Thought they were going to be like, God knows what. They're on TV. AOP. They're trying to do a gimmick, even if it is kind of like the Breaking Bad twins. It's something. Everyone seems to have a story right now, and I'm loving it.
I'm into it. I actually watch it live now.
The running storyline, The Fiend, allowing Bray Wyatt, who was basically a character that was murdered alive, to create this horribly dark, creepy, scary character, tying in children's stories and elements of Mr. Rogers.
It's demented.
And Elmo's World. Is that
Yeah.
what that's called? To tying all that together, but creating this psychotic character who could murder people and still not making it lame or corny is brilliant.
The fact that they are now selling the puppets from the Firefly Funhouse.
The puppets in the mask.
Yeah.
I think it's incredible. I think that if you have not watched Raw in a while, if you got tired of it, it's time to give it a chance right now. I'm going to pause on SmackDown until SmackDown relaunches on Fox
100%.
because I'm going all in on NXT now being on Wednesdays.
Which is another thing. USA Network has 2 great nights of wrestling. And actually, the wrestling is now better on Raw. People actually get a little more time to wrestle. NXT is probably the best wrestling program you are going to see. Now, granted, we're waiting to talk about AEW until that premieres. That said, NXT has been sort of the junior league, the Teen Titans, if you will, of the WWE, and now they've got their own show on USA. This week will be the last week that they're only going to be an hour because they're waiting for Suits to wrap up. But starting next week, they're going to be a 2-hour live program every Wednesday. If you just want to dip your toe into the water professional wrestling, NXT is absolutely where to do it. You're going to fall in love.
If you know nothing, next week watch some NXT or watch AEW,
Yeah.
which will be premiering as well.
I'll be watching AEW.
If you're a Laps fan, Raw is really interesting right now, and what Heyman's doing is a very fresh approach. I mean, look, Vince McMahon's fingerprints are still on it, but he's trying different things. SmackDown, even though Paul Bischoff's around, I hear stories of him rewriting everything. So I'm curious to see how that goes. I'm gonna wait for SmackDown to it's gonna get a full reboot.
So let me ask you this. I mean, I know they say Vince is releasing some of the control, but do you think this new Wednesday Night War put a little lead back in Vince's pencil?
I think it did, but I do honestly believe that he has no involvement in NXT other than just to make sure it's good.
Yeah.
I really do agree. I mean, Triple H said that Vince called him afterwards, said it was great, so he's not there.
Yeah.
And if it falters, there's going to be an issue. It did get like a 1.1, 1.2, which is about half of what SmackDown gets or less than, but still very, very good. I think it was like number 2 in its time slot or something. So it's doing what it is.
It's going to, I mean, look, everything that's happening right now with AEW, WWE, Mark Cuban buying Impact and putting it actually on Access, which is a channel that like everybody actually has. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Ring of Honor's around the corner. It's a great time to be a wrestling fan.
And let's not drop the ball. MLW, Major
Yeah.
League Wrestling, is a very, very
Crushing
well done
it.
show. Ring of Honor, I think, is just going to get bought out soon. Like, I just don't see what's going on with there.
Yeah, that's fine.
There's nothing. Get Maurice Scurll off there. Put Dalton Castle somewhere good. Maybe put him in NXT.
Love him.
I think there is room for him versus Velveteen Dream, but otherwise,
Dude,
yeah,
that would print money.
Yep.
But because I feel like in NXT they'd actually let Dalton do the whole thing.
And I like that now, since the NXT guys are on major cable television now, that you don't need to be excited for them to get the call up.
Exactly.
But they can just stay there. And if
Yeah.
you at the
Just
end,
pay them right.
at the end of
Sons of bitches.
supposedly they are.
All right,
I heard they gave him pay bump.
I'd be mad.
And I believe the structure was always different from people who were developmental versus people who came in with some star power.
Yeah.
I think I never hear anybody complaining about how much money they make in NXT.
No.
I don't think anybody's ever quit publicly because of that. So it is what it is. But definitely right now, if you're a lapsed wrestling fan, Raw's worth watching now. NXT, you might want to wait till next week. AEW, brand new show starting on TNT, which is with a lot of great indie stars that are forming their own major television show, All Elite Wrestling. The name of the show is horrible. Dynamite. Oh, you had not heard that until I told you?
I had heard it and I thought it was a rib because I was like, okay, listen, it's like you're trying to reconjure WCW, but how much of that specter do you really want?
Nitro. I mean,
Nitro, Dynamite.
They're going to have to figure that out quick because riding on the legacy of a bad former wrestling organization that lost is probably not the best thing.
Yeah.
I think they'll figure that soon enough. Again, that SmackDown will be coming to Fox in early October. Maybe that's a time to jump there if you want to jump in there. So much good stuff. It is a great time to be a wrestling fan.
Also, just going to put this out there. Most places that you go to have great independent wrestling shows. It's going to be a little expensive sometimes to get a good seat at a actual WWE event. But, man, you can go to some of these places that are doing indie shows and get a good seat for like $30, $40 and have the time of your life sitting there in the front row. Give it a shot, man.
Yeah, the House of Hardcore, GCW, awesome. Wrestle Pro.
House of Glory.
That's just New Jersey, what's around here. I mean, Jersey, New York, Ring of Honor when it's around. I mean, everyone comes here. Definitely check out wrestling. I think there's an art to it right now that's truly being recognized. And, again, I'm excited for the next year of pro wrestling.
Hells yeah.
So, Hambone, that brings another episode to the close.
Crazy, man.
I'm glad, always happy to have you here.
I'm always happy to be here with you.
I'm enjoying us doing this on Tuesdays again.
It's so good.
I'm enjoying that there's so much stuff to talk about.
It's pretty awesome.
We have Comic-Con next week, New York Comic-Con. We haven't figured out what we're going to do for that yet. I'm trying to figure that out because just interviewing rando people is not funny or fun anymore. So, and
we've done it like 3 times.
Yeah, it was better when we were getting interesting people, but then we were just trying to find the funny people. Ended up just being randos that weren't funny. They were just cosplayers. It was better back in the day when it was just weirdos.
Yeah,
that cosplayed and normal people didn't. So you can just get people like, I'm just really into like dressing up like this. There's nothing. I'm not funny.
No,
I'm not creative. So
we might just go and enjoy Comic-Con this year. However, we're going to be there with 5G, so we're going to be uploading videos.
Oh yeah, 5G is going to be outside, so we'll figure that out. But there is that outdoor area. Hopefully we can get it there.
Hopefully Death Wish Coffee is back there, so I can get my coffee fix.
Death Wish Coffee. Hopefully Ash vs. Oh no, that's dead.
That's dead.
Yeah,
probably a South Park thing.
Maybe if only Rick and Morty shows up again. Just so you know, so I don't know what the hell you were talking about today when you said you got the lottery. The lotteries weren't announced yet.
No, I got a thing for one of the events that we put down that says we got in.
I bet you they're just like doing that for like super fans or something because the lottery is picked on the 30th.
I will show you the email off air because it's not good TV to show.
I don't doubt you. I just found out strange. So one thing I will rant about for a second, NYCC, New York Comic Con, makes it horribly impossible to figure out the lottery system.
Yes.
We didn't find out about it the one year until we noticed Funko was just doing lotteries. It's very strange, and it's to get lotteries to get into the events, signings, lotteries to get the exclusives, and they never tell you what it is. They don't shoot out emails about those. They have FAQs. You can't find them. When you do find it online, the link to it is buried. This time I was very, I actively hunted it down. Every day I was checking, Google searching, and I found out that the lotteries were open. They're open right now. They're open till, they're picking on the 30th, so you still have time right now to enter the lotteries, even though Hambone's already been selected for one. I can't figure that out, but definitely would like to get into the AEW panel.
Definitely. We want to meet Luchasaurus.
I got to be very clear. I think we're still going to be able to get into that if we line up early.
Yeah.
Like, that just doesn't seem like one has to be a hard one to get into.
I'd line up for Luchasaurus.
I'd let you, and we don't know if he's going to be there yet, but Comic-Con, they keep trying every year and they step into a little more. Thursday tickets still available. You know how I know that? Because they bother us 3 times a day.
Yeah, and today they finally sent out an email being like, hey guys, Thursday's tickets are available and the lotteries are happening right now.
But they didn't to give you a link to where it was.
Oh no, they just said it was happening. Like, you got to go looking. It's like the worst kind of treasure hunt.
But, maybe that's a good thing, because that means there's a better chance we might actually get something.
Yeah, because, at this point with New York Comic Con emails, everyone's probably just like spam.
Yeah, because I checked in the Robot Chicken thing that you might have gotten into is actually the same time as AEW.
Yeah, we'll be going to AEW instead.
Exactly. So, anyway, Hambone, I'm George.
You're George.
Hambone. I'm
me.
so tired.
I know, buddy.
I haven't slept much lately. I had a horrible stomach ache all last night. I was roaming around New York all day yesterday in the heat. It was hot yesterday.
Yep, false fall got us again.
Crazy week. But how can the kids reach you?
You can find me on the Twitter at Hambreaker. I tweet about cute animals. I tweet about Dungeons and Dragons. I tweet about professional wrestling. You can also follow my day-to-day adventures on Instagram, in podcasting, and in life at John Hambone McGuire.
How come you didn't call your production company Hambreaker Productions? Because that's actually a very good name.
Yeah, it is. I like the Ham-Fisted Productions because it's...
It's still funny every time you say it.
Yeah.
But Hambreaker is a very good handle.
It is.
I don't know where you got that from, but I like Hambreaker.
Yeah, well, when this one goes bankrupt, I'll just...
I like John McGuire. I like Ham-Fist.
I'm nice.
I love you, Hambone.
Love you too, buddy.
Oh, Jesus. You can reach me at GLK Creative on the Instagram. You can reach me at GLK Creative on the Twitters. I am at cultofgeorge.com. MaiTaiTV.com is where you can find all the old archived episodes of Mai Tai Happy Hour. We are available on Spotify, on Android Play Store, on Android Podcasts, on Google Podcasts. We are on Apple iTunes Podcasts. Rate, review, and subscribe us wherever you hear about us. Every single review helps us just feel better about ourselves. And
it's an ego boost.
It's completely an ego boost.
It also helps other listeners to find us.
Exactly, and we appreciate you every single day. Hambone, take us out.
Everybody remember, be nice. Aloha.